In this episode of Man versus Marriage, it's another panel group, and I am jacked about it. We got, who almost said, I'm going to say it anyway, Wild Bill Smith and Noah Wylie along for the ride. We'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of Man versus Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, Quincy Moran, a.k.a. the Q-Dog, in the Moran family studio. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hold on to your hats. It is yet again another panel group. And I have two very, very fine gentlemen on this panel with me today. Matter of fact, two guys, real talk, that I deeply respect, and I'm really glad to match them up. Before we get started, I want you to ask yourself a question. I want you to ask, do I belong here at this podcast? And then I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what this podcast is all about. About 15 years ago, married, 8 kids, and life was not going how I anticipated it to go. I was not living an intentional life. I was seeking affirmation outside of the home because things were rough at home, trying to do all that I could to provide for this family. And I was listening to a podcast, and it asked me this question. It said, think for a minute about your funeral and the people that are going to be there. Think to yourself, ask yourself the question, what would you want these people to say about you when you are gone? So I thought long and hard about that, and I started putting those things together. And right after that, the guy says, now come back to today and ask yourself, are you living a life that points you in that direction? And I had to answer the question and say, no, I'm not living my life in such a way where my family would say that I was dependable, that they could count on me. I was not living the life where my wife said that I was the husband that she had dreamed for. I was not living the life where my kids would say I was as present as possible. So that's where I had to make some different decisions in my life. And I did. And my wife and I went to marriage coaching, and it dramatically changed our life. And I'm here to tell you that you have the opportunity to do that yourself. I began living a very intentional life. It's what I call living on purpose for a purpose. My first ministry, my first calling is in my home. And that's where I should have been making the biggest impact. I wanted to matter to somebody. And there were people under my roof that mattered the most to me, and I needed to turn that around. And that's what this podcast is all about. So if you ask yourself, do you belong here? And any of that connected with you and where you're at, absolutely, you belong here. So make sure that you get into these episodes. Make sure that you start to live the intentional life. And I just encourage you, I challenge you to have that funeral experience yourself. And then ask yourself in the present day, am I living my life in such a way where I will accomplish those things and my family will know and believe those about me because it's a product of who I am? So welcome to the show. Before we get started right away, I want to remind you, all my listeners, and if you're new to the show, go to quincymoran.com/apparel and look at the brand. Man versus Marriage has now got swag available for you. It looks very similar to what I'm wearing here. Go rock the brand. I'm telling you, guys, no matter what happens with advertising, there's nothing like a t-shirt walking through the airport. There's nothing like a t-shirt walking in the gym. There's nothing like a t-shirt walking in public. People are still reading them, and it makes an impact everywhere you go. And then finally, our email address. You got questions, you got concerns, you Quincy at MVSM podcast.com. All right, guys, that was a lot. I told you I was going to be yakking, but here we go. So with us today, I want to welcome to the program my Uncle Bill. And Uncle Bill, I want you to talk to the folks about who you are and what you do.
My name's Bill Smith. I'm a bivocational pastor. I pastor the New Directions Church of God in Attala, Alabama. My wife and I have been here going on 20 years. I work part-time at Wind Ridges Golf Course in Gadsden. Been there a total of 17 years. Cindy and I have been married 44 and a half years.
Ooh.
So
Congratulations, man.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
So,
Kind of still under away from one of my questions to follow, but go ahead.
And I'm sort of like Quincy. I mean, I'll be honest. And, you know, I just find it hard to believe when somebody's been married, say 10 years, 15 years, say, my wife and I has never had a disagreement. I find that hard to believe. You know, it's male and female, and we're two different and separate individuals, and we have different thought patterns. And I was with Quincy. You know, I haven't always walked with the Lord. When we first got married, I did not. I was raised a preacher's kid, and I had been so hurt as a teenager and even as a young adult by things I had seen my parents go through, that I didn't want any part of church. And, you know, I had some disagreements with my parents. And of course, you know, I was always wrong. But I said, if these people can go to heaven doing what they're doing to a pastor and his wife, I can do what I want to, you know. So anyway, long story short, for a while we did not go to church very much. And then we got in church, and I got back out of church anyway, and looking for things outside of the home, as Quincy was sharing. But God got my attention in 1996. He gave me one more opportunity to make things right. I knew when he spoke to me that day that this was it. So we've been on the journey ever since. And there's heartaches, there's headaches, but there's joy and happiness also. And
that's right.
Amen.
We found out we'd been married nearly 10 years when Amber was born, and we found out a child is truly a blessing from the Lord. Doesn't matter if you got one, or as Quincy does, a dozen. Or however many, they are a blessing from the Lord. And
yes, they are.
Work. It takes work on both ends. The husband and the wife both have to work at it to make the marriage work.
That's right.
And my favorite scriptures about love is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Because without you know, it says charity in the Bible, but it's love. Without it, we're going to fail. Because he tells us in the end of verse 2 and 3, that, you know, at least, though I have the gift of prophecy and understanding all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. But then in verse 3, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing.
That's
so
right.
Without love, what are we and where are we?
That's right.
So,
that's right. That's a good word.
Turn it back to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate you sharing. Also on the podcast, my cousin Noah Wylie. Noah,
Hello.
tell the people, yes, sir. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Who I be and what I does? Yes.
That's
My name
give it
is
to us.
Noah Hezekiah Wylie. Try to
Wow.
spell that when you're 5. Takes a while. I am 4 decades and 3 years of age on this earth. Been married to my bride Amanda for 24 years. And
Good.
we have 10 children together. The same 2 people. We had them together. And if you're asking, yes, I do know what causes that. So if you write into Quincy with suggestions on educating me, I appreciate the thought, but I'm well versed in what causes it. And I think it's a gift from the Lord, right? Right, Wild Bill? And we got 5 boys, 5 girls, ranging from 20 down to the age of 5. So we're definitely in that season of trying to figure out how do we work on our marriage while still raising a bunch of little ones, which is a fun season to be in, but we're learning to have to be very purposeful and in
right.
our relationship with one another. It's so easy to get lost in just raising the kids. You forget about one another. I could talk more about that. I had an eye-opening experience a couple of years ago about all that, but my wife and I are so blessed to be able to own and operate a virtual bookkeeping business together from our home. So I get to be a large part of the kids' school in the morning. We homeschool our kids. And then her and I get to talk shop as well as personal, which is, you learn a lot about each other when you work together. And so that's been exciting as well. But I'm really thankful, Quincy, for having me on today, just to listen to you, Bill, and to get to share whatever I get to share.
That's excellent. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing those things. And we will get into some of those topics as time permits. Um, I want to start out the podcast as far as, the second question. I've asked you who you are and what you do. Wild Bill, I want to ask you this question. Answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. It's a little fun exercise that helps me learn just a little bit more about you, okay? So, I'm going to give you 3 options. Tell me which one you would be if you had a choice. Okay? Here we go. Cowboy, pirate, samurai. Which one would you be?
Cowboy.
All right, cowboy. Why can you tell me why you would pick cowboy?
Because I'm on the land. Being a pirate, be out on the rough water. Being a samurai, you get your head cut off quickly if you're not careful.
I love it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey, question at 65, I prefer none of the 3.
That's right. That's right. So true. That's right.
Love it.
All right, Noah, your turn. Cowboy, pirate, samurai. And
definitely samurai, even though I'm at risk of being decapitated. So
yeah, what drives you to the samurai? Talk to me.
Yeah. I've always been impressed by that culture, especially the older culture and the discipline that they showed with just everyday life, and samurai especially. And probably because I feel like that's something I lack in my life. I respect what it takes to become skilled at being a samurai and the honor code that they had as well. So
yeah, if either one of you had to guess, what would you guess that I picked out of those 3?
Probably a pirate.
That's what I was gonna go with. Pirate.
I picked samurai.
Samurai.
Yeah. Yeah. Much for the same exact reason you did. There's an honor code, a loyalty code. There's a togetherness, and the way I look at it, discipline. I really, really love it. The culture of what they do, and then, one of the panel guests from the last episode told me how much they, have a reverence for nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well that drives even further. Now, it's funny that you think I would.
Also, a cowboy is hard work.
Yeah.
I've never known my whole life.
That's right.
Started out as running a paper route, riding my bicycle at 10 years of age. So I've had to work. Even in high school, I had to work, go to school, work, and play baseball, you know, but that's all I've ever known is hard work. So I guess that would be
Yep.
part of the of a
Right.
It's
cowboy.
part of it too. It really is. It's funny because the more you take a little bit of time, it's a goofy little thing that my girls ask
Yeah.
me. I don't know where they got the question, but I thought about it immediately. I said samurai. That's what I'd be.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking about it a little bit. It's like, well, what would make me want to be that? And the more I got into it, the more depth the question actually has because it helps me learn a little bit about myself. And then I look
Right.
at the others and say, well, why didn't I pick the pirate? Why didn't I pick the cowboy? What drew me to the samurai? Just a moment to reflect. And so I
But
asked my brother, Josh, I was like, Josh, what would you choose? Cowboy, pirate, samurai? And I had an idea of what he was going to pick. I was correct. What do you guys think Josh would have picked?
none of the three.
He
I'm gonna go
picked,
pirate again, but
yeah, he picked pirate. Boom.
Yeah.
It was that quick.
Yeah.
And I said, that totally suits you, Josh Moran.
You and
Oh,
Noah,
my goodness.
you and Noah both use the same word there, the discipline of being that.
Yeah.
You know, there's not a lot of discipline in the home anymore. You know, I'm not just talking about as far as disciplining your kids or, you know,
Right.
just discipline. I mean, with you having 8 and him having 10 children, there has to be some sort of discipline about the way that the home is run. I would think,
Absolutely.
you know, we just
Yes.
had the one, but there's still with 8 and 10, it couldn't be, well, let's just wake up this morning and see what happens. That y'all
No,
had that kind of a disciplined structure
Right.
to home go.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I-
For us, yes, especially like there was a time in my life I kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the show about being out and seeking affirmation other places. Because we took, you know, the 5 love languages, and it was like my top
yeah,
at that time was words of affirmation. No
Right.
secret. You know, you look at me, say, "Hey, you're doing a great job." Boom, I'm shining. I'm great. You know, conversely, your words potentially could tear me down. At least back in the day. Now, I do my best to allow a core group of people speak into my life, and you know, and let their words really uh, penetrate down to my soul. It's like a reflection piece. But
Right.
when I walked away from being, you know, a pastor, when I walked away retired, I would say, instead of walked away from being a football coach, those are two of the things that I thought would maybe give me the most meaning. And then, you know, my wife, I was coaching football. I was doing some kind of radio show. I was, you know, doing uh, like trying to do a clothing line and on and on and on. And both of you know me, I still do many things in my life. Um, and my wife was sitting there. She was pregnant. She looked at me and she was like, she was crying. She's like, I need you at home. I need your help. And it almost came out of my mouth. I almost said this. Thank God. But at least I knew I thought it. And I nearly said, hey, I made a commitment to those boys on the football team. I stopped there because it gave me a moment to reflect to myself and say, wow, you're way out of line. Your priorities are way out of line. And so after taking a step back and saying, okay, I need to do, like, my dad was a man on the run. His dad was a man on the run. And I don't mean that as they're out, you know, there's not crime, and well, maybe early in their life there was, but they were always out doing something. They were always out doing church. They were, you know, doing tent revivals and things of that nature, out working, trying to make a living for the family. And so I was doing what I saw in the past. My intentions were good. My wife was, you know, she was tripping about groceries. At one point, we were eating out of a food bank at church. So the more I heard her talk about the needs of our family not being met, the more I tried to work, because I figured one of these things is going to take off and it's going to help me
yeah,
supply for my family.
Right.
Then at that time, then I'll reinvest myself back. But it came to the point where I had to take saw and I invest myself first in my family. And man, it really it dramatically changed my life. It changed my marriage. I believe it changed the course of my kids' lives.
Right.
There's a distinct difference between the older kids and the younger kids and just how they've gone, like how their life is, what their path is, what their disciplines are to a degree. And it has to do around that time where I decided to be intentional about the way I live. I say all that to say is that there's a few things that it is incumbent upon us to teach and grow our children. And one of those things to me that's very important is to teach them the value of learning how to manage disappointment. Because if we don't teach them that in our home, then life is going to try and teach them that on the outside. And
Right.
it's going to get ugly because then you have a bunch of toddler, you know, running around in society. So I just want to expand on that a little bit, guys. What are some of the core values of your home that you've instilled over the years? We have house rules. We have 10 keys for a great life. We do family, in the past, especially when they were younger, we would do family discussions to talk about things that went on in life, to talk about culture and what was going on in the world, et cetera. So, Wild Bill, what are some of the things that y'all did? I know it's been a long time since Amber's been in the house, but what are some of the things you did, like to teach and train your child in the way that they should go? Something you feel of value now.
Get out.
Get out. I love it.
No,
Okay, I'm gonna
no,
get to work on that right now.
um, and I commend Noah and his wife for homeschooling their kids, because Amber was homeschooled. Um, we we tried to show her love between her mom and her dad,
Yes.
to let her know what it was. You know, there was never any physical abuse, that she saw. Cindy and I, it's never been physical abuse. A lot of kids are growing up seeing mom and dad fight. But we just tried to instill her the you know, even though, when you she would do things, because all kids do. Anybody that tells me that their kid don't lie, that parent's telling a lie. The kid's gonna lie, you know.
Yep.
Right.
But Cindy mainly tried to instill in Amber, if you do it, own up to it. She said, because one thing I will not tolerate is you lying to me. Instill in them, teach them, yeah, it may hurt to tell you the truth, but it's better off to tell the truth to begin with than trying to cover up lie after lie. And
That's
to
right.
just be good to people. Amber saw some very hurtful things that me and Cindy have gone through as pastors. She's seen some hurtful stuff. She heard some stuff said about her mom and dad, being called names, but we just always tried to instill in her, just be good to people, pray for
Yes.
people. It's hard to do sometimes. It's hard to pray, which we instilled in reading God's word, praying with her, letting her see that the spiritual aspect, even when she was little. And but just be good. Yeah, people's gonna hurt you. That's life. Life,
Right.
life is hard. Life is tough. People think, and I know with Noah being on, I can't even imagine 10 kids. I'd go ballistic, I guess. Um, but you think about that, 10 children. Now, what have they heard said about their mom and dad? I like, and even with yours, what has your children heard about their mom and dad? Because when you pastor, your kids hear everything.
They sure
Right.
do.
Your dad did this, your dad said that, your mom did this or did that, you know. You just have to say, pray for them. God will take care of them. It may not ever be down here, but come judgment day, God will take care of them. But just show them love as a husband and wife. Our country is failing because there's so many children that doesn't have a mom or a dad in their life. Grandma and grandparents, pa are having to raise them. Grandma and grandpa's old. They're not able to. But the grown kid that had the kid pushes them off on them. So show them love at home. Show them respect, yeah. But we always instilled in her, and this will be the last thing. You know, you hear so many parents say nowadays, because I've heard it from numerous church people I've had, I want to be my child's best friend. God didn't give you that child to be their best friend. God gave you that blessing for you to raise them right and to be a parent to them, not to be their best friend. So with that, I'll turn it to Noah. Let me see if I can get some wisdom from Noah. Noah, I'd have trouble spelling Hezekiah at 65.
We got when my kids first found out what my middle name was, they were like, Heza whatty? You know, it's like, that's why it's
What does
Noah
Hez have?
Wylie most of the time, not Hezekiah. I throw that out when I want people to think I'm cool, you know.
Yeah.
So first I wanted to speak to dads out there for a second, and then I do have a couple of specific things that we do in our family to try to stay connected with our kids. With a large family, it can get difficult. But something the Lord's been just working on me, and I've had the opportunity to talk to multiple other young guys or dads in the last month or two. And it's just, man, we all struggle, guys, with something. And I think men especially, we look at other guys and go, man, they got it all together. I wish I could just be like that family, that dad. And then you get to talk to that guy and he's like, man, I'm struggling and blah, blah, blah. And I struggle in that too. And so we all struggle with stuff, and we need one another. We need to be able to be open with each other within reason. And you got to be careful when you're doing that. But us guys, we need to be able to talk to other guys about where we're failing, where we've succeeded by the grace of God most of the time, and share those things with each other. We tend to get so isolated in our manhood that and then we just stay there and we struggle with things. And so one thing that the Lord's been trying to liberate me on is that, hey, and I'm resonating with what Quincy said a few minutes ago about how his older kids, kind of some different things there because of the parenting that was probably going on versus some of the younger kids. And I can see that as well. And it bothers me a lot of times. I feel super guilty about some of that. But it's never too late to be a better man in some area. And that's the beauty of it. Even if your kids are out of the house, you're still never too late to be that better parent or the better grandparent or whatever it may be. And we trick ourselves into thinking, well, that opportunity is gone. And there may be a ton of repair that has to happen. I understand that with some relationships, but it is not too late to do better. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is that I remember when this hit me several years ago, that you are the exact dad that your kids need. I mean, by design, down to your character, your personality. And yeah, there's things that we try to work on. I understand that. But it wasn't an accident that you are that child's dad. Okay. You're the exact dad that each of those kids needs to shape their life to what it needs to be. We mess up. Yes, we mess up. Okay. On the flip side, they are the exact kids that you're supposed to have. Sometimes some of your kids, like, they have certain personalities that really work on your character, if you know what I mean. Certain days, they're very character building days with some certain kids. That's by design. That's because there's things in you that need to mature and grow and get better. and your kids do that to you, right? So just, I don't know. I think take that in. You're the exact parent they needed. It's not an accident. And they're the exact kids that you need. It was not an accident. So be encouraged by that. Couple things that just over the years that we have come to, that I've been convicted of, to do with my children, is one, we do something called Thursdays with Dad. And that's where any kid over the age of 5, we come back here or into whatever room, and we either read a story together, we work on memorizing the scripture together, whatever it is. It's something that we're doing together. And there's lots of candy. I love throwing candy at my kids. That's a lot of fun during that time. Headshots or extra points. And so there's a lot of sugar involved, and sort of that's not always a good thing, but it's just the way that it is. We laugh together really hard. We're goofy together. And then at the end of that, I pray for one of them. And then after that's over, I have a one-on-one time with one of them, to where we just talk about, hey, is there anything that you want to talk about that you don't feel comfortable talking about in front of the other kids? Now, guys, I'm not faithful to that every Thursday, but we are consistent in at least trying to make it happen. So that's called Thursdays with Dad. We do that. I have a once a month date night or bro night. And whenever my boys say, "Isn't my date night?" I'm like, listen, we got to fix that. It's your bro night. Okay.
Get it
So
straight
once
down.
a month, one of the kids is assigned where they get to pick either where we go eat or what we go do together. And then I do whatever they left out. And so we basically spend all afternoon or all eating together, just the two of us. Now with 10 kids, when it first got started, it took a while for people's date or bro nights to roll around. They had to wait for it for a really long time. And if that particular date night or bro night falls on their birthday month, then it's a really big deal. Like, we'll go stay the night somewhere, make it a big deal. And then the last thing that I try to do to just stay connected with them, and I'm not very faithful at this, but we do try, is just one, we try to eat dinner together as a family. And then we try to do just family devotions together, where we're reading scripture together. That's our family's conviction, and where we pray together. And I'm telling you, those are the things that I've been convicted of. And one of the models that God has given me is do no more or no less than what you've been convicted of. Because if you keep trying to do more, then you're spinning your wheels. If you do less, then you're not moving forward, like Quincy talked about, into the man and family that you want. So those are the things that I personally have been convicted of to do to stay connected with my kids. And when I'm doing those things consistently, there is a massive shift in the house, and the love, respect. And the last thing I would mention is never be too prideful to apologize to your kids when you jack up. That is oddly one of the most bonding moments that you can have, is when you go, listen, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. Will you forgive me? Because that's what we train them to do, right? I need to do it too. And that is so powerful, and showing love, like Bill was talking about. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on what we do in our house, Quincy.
Man, you both say 2 cents, but more like you gave us $1.
Quincy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Noah, how did you and your wife handle with one being 20 and one being 5, and you got them in between? How do you differentiate the parenting part with that big of an age difference, with that many children?
Yeah, so larger families, and Quincy can probably attest to this, take on an interesting dynamic when you get around 4 or 5 kids, especially when they're older like that, because the older kids then start to really help out a lot with the parenting part. It's kind of an odd phenomenon. If you've influenced and instructed your older kids in your ways of thinking and in your convictions, they just naturally start doing that with the younger kids. And so it alleviates some of that one-on-one where you're like, man, I got to be here with every kid every minute of the day, which is just impossible. So in our house, that has helped tremendously. And percentage wise, more of our older kids are girls, and they just tend to have more of a nurturing spirit about them. The Lord has blessed us with older girls. Now, one of our older girls is now married, and we just had our first grandbaby a couple months ago,
Uh-oh.
which has been, oh my gosh, Quincy, that could be the rest of the podcast, just pictures of Adelaide. And so Bill, for us personally, the Lord structured it perfect. That has helped us so much with keeping up with everybody.
Do you feel like you know, one of them may resent trying to help? Because, hey, mom, hey, dad, that's your kid. I'm not their parent. You take care of them. Do you ever feel that aspect?
That's a great
That's a great
question,
question.
because we ask ourselves that all the time. Like we would hate for one of our kids to leave the house and go, I ain't never having kids because I already had them. They just weren't mine.
Right.
So
Right.
that, yeah, we try to be mindful of that. If we sense that because one of the older girls that helps out a lot, she just started going to school. And so she's very tied up with that right now as well. So a lot of things have shifted to other kids. So if we sense that one of them is getting overburdened, we try to have a sit down with them. We take them to eat or whatever and go, hey, are you feeling overwhelmed? What's overwhelming you? What can we do to cut down on that? Because it's a good point. It would be very easy, especially in a larger family or just any family really, to go, hey, I'll let you do all the parenting stuff, all the chores, all the whatever. I'll sit back and delegate and supervise like on a government road project. And that's not the way it's meant to be, because ultimately it's my responsibility and my wife's responsibility. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Very good. Because I know, Cindy and I, we admire Quincy. Him and Jenny will have a date night. They'll go watch hockey.
right.
Who wants to spend money and watch a hockey game? But they love it. They both love it. But or he might. I think Quincy wasn't Jenny with you on a work trip here a week
Yes,
or two
sir.
ago, and does that. But he had, but the older kids, they all sort of like provide an umbrella for all of the
Right.
rest of the kids, for them to be taken care of, for them to be
Yes.
gone.
Yes, sir.
And
That's a good way to describe it.
I admire both of you guys for doing that. That's awesome, and to take time, because if your spouse ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
No. Or
But
part of it was I didn't
over
find out
here,
what caused all that until the 9th kid. And so that was part of the issue. Nobody explained it to me until the 9th child, what was happening. So anyway, the 10th one was definitely a decision I made. But no, I'm just kidding. But I tell you, I learned a long time ago, it is not about the number of children you have in your family. It's just not. I mean, if we wanted to talk scripture, Bill, Abraham was supposed to have one and he had
yeah,
two, and it jacked the world up since then. And
yeah,
so it's not, and it's not about that. Homeschooling is not the fix to everything. It's really about you as the father leading whatever you've been given
yeah,
to the best of your ability. That's what it's
That's right.
about. I just want to throw that in there because I do think a lot of people think, man, you got a bunch of kids. Blah. Listen, it doesn't mean it's more work, less work, whatever. It just is what it is. We had a large family and then we chose to do that. But I admire every parent because it's hard and it's work and nobody gave you a book on how to do it. You figure it out as you go along. And so anyway, I just want to mention that for people out there who think, oh man, you got it all together because you got a big, we do not. And anyway.
Well,
No,
Quincy
it's a good
and
word.
Jenny were here. Was it last Christmas?
Yes, sir.
Quincy, and were all the kids with y'all? They
Yes,
were.
sir. I think
You know,
I think yes, everybody was with us.
and me and Cindy, we just know we sit there and we just admire Quincy and Jenny, with the patience that they have with their kids.
Yes.
Because Quincy's been around our one. Our one's a handful. She's 34.
Right.
Because I tell her all the time, you got Smith, and my mom's maiden name was Hale. HALE, not HELL.
Yeah.
And then she's got Moran and Tim. She got all four of them, and she can just go, she can act up. But the patience, yeah, because when they were here, Hunter, all he was talking about was Deontay Wilder, who is from Tuscaloosa. He used to be the heavyweight boxing champion. And, but just to see Jenny and Quincy just, be so patient with them. And then the older kids helping with them also. And, I just admire that.
Yes, sir.
Because God has to give y'all something special. I say patience to be able to deal with it, but just to see how loving parents, because a lot of people don't want to be around a bunch of kids or whatnot. But I admire both Quincy and Jenny done a great job, because I was trying to get Hunter to say Roll Tide, but it always go back to Deontay Wilder. And
Yeah, it was a great time.
Oh yeah.
I just want to talk about a few of the things that you guys brought out. I think there's so much gold in it. And one of the things you both alluded to, which is a core value of mine, is about being the example. And Uncle Bill, for you and Aunt Cindy, you wanted to be the example of love. You know what I'm saying? That is so big, because even the Bible talks about it, that what God is, who he is love. And I believe he is the ultimate example,
Right.
showing that to us. And so that was one of the first things that you brought out, is about being the example. And even Noah, talking about being the example when it comes to, hey, I teach my kids to own and to take responsibility and to apologize, but why does it matter if I'm not doing that myself? Because thank God it was a good day, and I appreciate the kind words, Uncle Bill, but we ain't always got it together.
Well,
And
hey,
for
fair
Jeannie and
enough.
I, for Jeannie and I, the question that you asked Noah, I think we simultaneously said that's a great question, because I do run a lot of concern about me overburdening our children. Now, we have some anomalies. We have three of ours have a disability to varying degrees, but our two oldest, pretty serious, when it comes to autism. And naturally, I think it's truly about the culture you endeavor to build inside of your home, and what that looks like, and taking intention and responsibility with that. And Noah, you said something that was like very, very inspiring to me. And that is, it's never too late to be a better man. And no matter what your circumstances, where you are, it's never too late to be a better man, whether your kids are in the home or not in the home, your kids are adults or whatever. Now's the time. Now
Right.
is the time. It's time to be intentional about it, because society needs good, strong, loving men. And in my house, I use a lot of tough love. I use a lot of humor. I use a lot of tough love with my kids too, because I want to prepare them the best that I can for life. And I know that there's only so much I can do to prepare them, and then experience is going to take the job from me before I know it. And it's already happened in many cases. But one thing I want to encourage the listeners to understand, and as you create a culture in your home, realize the blessing, the privilege, and the pressure that you have, because I believe dads are truly the thermostat of their home. And the reason I say that is because I began to notice it, when my kids were about the middle ages of growing up, that if I came home and I was really frustrated, I was upset about work and something was going on, I would change the entire atmosphere, the temperature in the home. It would reflect me.
Yeah.
And so when I would come home, even if they were having a bad day and things were really tough and Jeannie was frustrated and pulling her hair out, but if I would come home and I would lead with love, I would lead with joy, it's like, oh, wow, dad's home. And the temperature would change in the house. And that's something that I had to become intentional about, is to be the thermostat. I don't want to be the thermometer. I want to be the thermostat of where I am, especially in my own home. Because God had kind of put it on my heart to say, hey, where in the times of uncertainty, I want to be certainty. In the times of chaos, I want to be peace. So in the times when those times come about, what I'm truly saying is I want Christ in me to come out of me in that way. And I can bring that and adjust the temperature in my home. And so when I started to learn that, I kind of shared it with Jeannie, and it's like, do you see this? And she, yeah, I see it. So I have to be very aware of how I come home. And it makes all the difference. So if that's not something you're aware of, it's not something that you even knew about, maybe it's a brand new concept to you, our listener, I just encourage you to take from the things that you are hearing in this show and then start to curate an intentional life about how you lead your family, about how you lead, your household. And I kind of made mention of it, earlier on, that we have house rules, and it's like almost like an unwritten constitution, but I would sit our family down and talk about what the house rules are. What is the value system in our home? And then, through the process of really hard times with Hunter, we developed, 10 keys to a great life, and it really aligned. And so when they would come to me and ask me, or they would ask about X, Y, and Z, I'd say, what are the house rules? Let's talk about it. Let's understand. Let's put this up against our family values and see how we should move forward. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, really game changing for me. And so I'm just going to read a few other things that I wrote down. Uncle Bill, you and Aunt Cindy wanted to be the example. You wanted to lead with love. Um, and then you wanted to show her what it was like to be husband and wife. And that is something that is so crucial. It's so critical when it comes to raising your family. You are the example as a husband or as a wife of what your kids are going to take away, because like we talked about earlier in the program, you are going to do what you see. You're not always going to do what you're told. It's later in life where the words and the lessons come and they kind of sink in, but you are going to do what you see. And then you guys had a core value, or you guys really built an expectation of, I'm going to be honest with you. I want honesty. I want truth. I want that respect to be built between us, and then the product of faith, Uncle Bill, like you were talking about. But to reiterate something that is incredibly important in this particular culture, I think my generation is probably to blame for a lot of this crap. If you are trying to be your child's best friend as you are raising them, you are doing them and society a disservice. If you disagree with that, then disagree with it. Like Steven Crowder would say, change my mind. But my kids, even now in their later teen years, and they'll say, "Oh, thanks, friend," and they're joking and I'm joking, but still sternly I say, "Hey, I'm not your friend. I'm your dad."
Right.
And there's a reason for that, because there are life lessons that only a dad can teach. And why do I say that? Because I believe it's my responsibility and what God has put upon my heart to teach them. And it's difficult. I grew up with a single mom. It's difficult because they are more nurturing. And when it comes time to get some of these disciplines, you need a good cop and a bad cop. And it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on a single parent. And thank God for the single parents that continue along and raise their children. You guys and gals are a blessing. I'm a product of a single mother, but she did have some community, my grandparents around to help. And then my dad, obviously, for a while, he was a single dad, and I had my granny and papa there to support us. So I'm not taking anything away from that. But I just want to reiterate the fact that you as a dad, you can be friends and your relationship can change when you get on up in years and they start to get some of that true experience of what it is to be, you know, an adult and married and have kids, etc. But do not do not try to be your child's best friend early on, because you will do them a disservice. There are lessons that you must teach them, and it has to do with hard work. It has to do with a sense of discipline, whether it's correction or it is lifestyle. It has to do with being able to process, which we don't do a great job of in this society, disappointment. Because, right now, I look at my family, and the cell phone generation is that's what's really raising our kids.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
really it's really a sad fact that, early on, my parents didn't really have to combat that. We had TV, black and white and color TV, but we didn't have the world at our fingertips. And then you
Right.
you go to the restaurant and look around the restaurant. Um,
Yep.
People are on a date, their face is in their phone. People are sitting around the table, their face is in their phone. It's happening everywhere, like epidemic status. So if you if you make the mistake, which I believe is a mistake, of trying to be your child's best friend, I'm not saying you can't have fun, you can't joke around,
Right.
but there has to be that line of authority where you can correct your child and help them to get on a particular path, help them maintain a particular path. And then, like we all know, everybody on this podcast, Wild Bill and Noah, that there comes a point in life where now your child has to go out and use all the knowledge that you've given them and allow experience to be the teacher. That happens. So just to round that out, and then, Noah, you started out with, guys, we really need one another. And it's interesting because I kind of compare this to church. Um, all too often, as I observe church, people would come in, they put their Sunday best on, they put their best foot forward. It's like nobody's got any problems, nobody's struggling. Um, but then when you leave, people still have problems. Not that you'll never have problems, but to me, um, there's a lot of frustration, a lot of fighting, a lot of talking about one another, a lot of that.
Mhm.
And I mean, that happens in the world too, but it's like, where is the one place that we should be able to gather with people that we've built trust with and explain, I'm going through this? That is part of the church community that I didn't necessarily see as I was growing up. I too was a pastor's kid. And so I got to hear and see things that are very, very difficult to take when, your parent or your grandparent is the pastor of something. So,
Right.
you know, um, we do need men that are trustworthy, that we can say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have any wisdom you can give me?" Or I just need to let all the air out of the balloon and talk about it, because maybe we
Yeah,
don't have a solution.
it's true. Sorry.
Um, and then, the idea, and I truly believe this. And Uncle Bill, you and Aunt Cindy lead a phenomenal Bible study that we do every other Thursday. I want to invite you, the listener, you, Noah, whoever, please come be a part of it. It's amazing. And but to say you are the dad your kids need. And I agree. I couldn't agree with that more after being a parent for over 23 years. I wouldn't want my children to be born to anybody else. I don't say that disrespectfully, but I know the love that God has put in my heart for them. I
Right.
know the patience that He has built in me through that. And sometimes you take a step back and you go, how in the world did we ever make through it? It's God's grace, obviously. But it's still incumbent upon us to make a choice to be that parent,
Exactly.
because it's
That's
not
true.
just going to happen. You have
No.
to be intentional, and you have to choose to be that parent. Um, and then, the part about apologizing, and then to cap it off, it's never too late to be a better man. Guys, I'm telling you, just the wisdom, the golden nuggets you guys have put out. I am so thankful that you're willing to come on the program and share that to people around the world. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It was
man.
an honor.
Can I speak real quick to the better man thing for just a second? Do we have a second?
Oh, yeah, we've got time.
Okay.
We got a few more minutes. I got one more question for you guys after
Sure.
that, and then we
Okay,
can
I'll
wrap.
make it quick then. Just personal trap that I fall into a lot is when I'm in a cycle where I see things that need to change in my life, is I typically try to change them all at once. And that lasts about 2 weeks. And then I'm back to
Right.
being depressed because I can't be a better man and whatever. But then I read a book and it really gave me some tools to help me. And it talks just about being 1% better. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I can do 1% better. But if I do 1% better this month, 1% better the next month, that does stack up and result in real life change that impacts me and my family. So if you're a guy and you're like, I know I got to work on this and that, and I want to be this and that, listen, what can you find that you can do 1% better today? You can find that. You can find 1% better. Focus on that, get that hammered, and then focus on the next 1%. For this little shaped head here, I can do that. I can't do the whole, I got to get healthy and dig and keep digging deeper in the word. And I got to start reading more books and I got to get back to my writing and, oh, I got to spend time with my kid. I mean, then I don't do anything that moves me forward to the man that I want to be. And then I feel like I'm losing and failing. And so 1% better, you can do that.
Yeah, that is an excellent word. And I'll tell you, if you would commit to doing 1% better for an entire year, now you're at 12%. And you just apply 12% to anything you have. Would you like to make 12% more money? Would you like to have 12% more fuel efficiency in your car? Would you like to be able to buy 12% more groceries? I mean, once you start to do that, and the cool thing about that is that you on month 13, over the course of time, it starts to go from addition to multiplication because
Exactly.
it will multiply. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think you definitely, I think the most important part of that, aside from the beauty of just minimizing it to something that's achievable so that you can stay encouraged, is that you have the awareness. You have the self-awareness to know I need to start somewhere that I can be consistent.
Right.
And so, maybe for you, the listener, you're like, well, I could do 1%. Maybe I could do 5%. Whatever it is, Noah on this podcast is the one who taught me the philosophy of eat the meat and spit out the bones. And I have been living by that for such a long time. So take it, like this show, take it, make it your own. But at the very least, if you can do 1% better, before you know it, 5 months has passed because you just remain consistent in that 1%, and you are now 5% better. And 5% you can get great returns on. I mean, you can get tremendous returns on investment with capital. 5% is a great return. So just think about those things. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, in the path to becoming a better man, because truly, and I tell guys this too, I said, the world deserves the absolute best version of you. And I take that approach because I want to honor God with my life in such a way where I'm putting forward the best version of me that would honor him for the gift of life that I have. And I don't take it lightly. And there are plenty of ways that that I screw this thing up, but there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value in intention and small disciplines that add up over time. So thank you. Thank you for that word. Okay. As we wrap the program, I'm going to ask you both real quick a question. And that is, Wild Bill, Uncle Bill, you've been married for 44 years. So what would you, if you got to go back in time and talk to Bill 44 years ago as he's getting ready to get married, what piece of advice after 44 years of experience would you give Bill? And then Noah, I'm going to give you Run. You know what? Something told me that was going to be your advice.
Yes.
I'll give you a minute to think about it, Wild Bill. And then Noah, the same goes for you. I'm just recapping. You've been married for 24 years.
Yes, sir.
Start to think, as Wild Bill is talking, start to think about what you today would go back and tell you 24 years ago as you're getting ready to say your vows. Wild
Yes.
Bill, what do you think, man?
Communicate better, listen better.
That's a good word.
I'll leave it at those two words: communicate and listen.
Ooh.
Is that simple enough?
Yes, sir. I'm just writing it down.
Okay.
Just doing some off-air show notes there.
You know, men are accused of selective hearing, so communicate and listen.
Yeah, that's funny enough. Noah and I were talking about this when I drug him to this terrible experience out in the heat. It was actually a great experience, but it was terrible weather. And so he and I were talking about this on the long ride up about just our ability to communicate, but to listen authentically. I mean, we were talking about these things, and that's one of the lessons to me. And I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about in a second, is to learn how to listen authentically. It can make people very uncomfortable. But we were talking about, how we can provide more value from my podcast. And it's like, well, kind of talking through it, it's like, well, I could just take the top 5 themes of episodes that have been downloaded, and that kind of tells me what the listeners want to learn more about. And communication is obviously right up there in the top. It may be top 3. So, communication and listening, because it's not what you say, it's what your spouse hears you say that's going to make all the difference.
Right.
And you may be saying, yeah, I like the blue drum, and your wife is like, I don't know anything about a green drum. What are you talking about? You just speak in opposite languages. Noah, what would you give us? What would you give us for, the Noah of 24 years ago? What advice do you think you would you give
Sure.
him?
So we're going to get vulnerable here for a second. I think we can do that on this podcast. Sadly, when I got married, I was very deep into pornography addiction, and that wrecked the first couple years of our marriage and caused us to go through some very difficult things. And my wife and I both saved ourselves physically, as far as that, from when we got married. So we were both virgins, but it really kind of ruined all of that when it finally came out after a year or two that I've been struggling with pornography. And there's so much that we could talk about there. But I'm telling you, I've talked to other guys that have done the same thing, and they struggled with it all by themselves for years and years and years because you're too ashamed to tell anybody. If I could go back and convince myself to tell somebody before I got married so the Lord could draw that nasty cancer out and kill it, that's what I would do.
That's such a good word.
That's good.
I do think there are many men who suffer in silence with an addiction, period.
Yeah.
The worst addiction I've ever had is food. It's
Yeah.
just something that it was a coping mechanism. Obviously, it's a big word for this show, but it was a coping mechanism. I was very emotional, and I would eat emotionally.
Right.
And
Yeah.
man, I could do it. I was probably one of the, I would say, world class at it. But there are many men, and I've talked to guys about porn, and there was an experience. I'm going to share this with you. There's an experience I had, I think late last year, and I guess I didn't know this, but there's a guy at work, like at our particular location, which I travel a lot. I'm not regularly there, but he
Right.
gives people nicknames. And you'll always, in my experience, at least in my line of work, you have somebody the comedian that's there, and they tend to give everybody nicknames. Well, they gave this guy a nickname, and I thought it was pretty catchy. I was like, cool. I made him a logo because I like to design stuff. And one time I was going to send an email that was like an all points email and throw that name out there and put the logo. And I was like, that might just be an inner branch type deal. So I won't do it. So I went up and I called him by that name, when I went to visit the branch. And I said, dude, because I sent him the logo. I said, bro, what do you think about that logo? And he goes, you don't know, do you? And I was like, I don't know what. It's a cool logo. It has the Texas flag colors in it. He
Right.
goes, he's like, that nickname is a porn star.
Oh,
And I was like, what? Yeah, he goes, that nickname is a porn star. I said, dude, I almost called you that name in front of everybody. It would have been,
oh God.
I would have been mortified. And so a couple
Wow.
other guys came around and they were like, dude, Quincy had no idea who this was. And I say that to say that I think you used the proper word. Is pornography is a cancer,
Yeah.
and pornography is a liar, and pornography is a thief. I've often said that pornography is napalm. It's almost impossible to put the fire out. And it's really sad because I've talked to guys about it in the past, and it gets to the point where they can't even go because of what it like they have to continually increase how radical the pornography gets in order to climax. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is not something that's making your relationship better. This is actually giving you some false concept of what it should be. And I'm no fan of it. Early on in my life, I kind of dabbled in a little bit, and I was like, this is kind of gross. It's I don't think I want to do this. And then I started having daughters, and it's like, ooh, God forbid I ever, So thank you for being vulnerable about that, Noah, because not everybody would. And listen, listener, you may disagree with my take on pornography. I don't really care. It's up to you how you feel about it. But you have a guy on here that's telling you and that has talked to other guys about it. It can wreck your relationship. And there's some marriage counselors that encourage husbands and wives to watch it together. So I just look at that and I go, it's just not for me. I don't know where that leads, but it's not going to lead somewhere good. So thank you for that, because I think all too often we do think guys and families have it all together. But everybody's got their own brand of crazy that goes on in their life, their own brand of chaos that happens. And it might not look the same, but a lot of times, as long as you trust the guy, and guys, if somebody comes and talks to you about something in their life, don't you dare let me catch you spreading that gossip around. Because that's not what dudes are supposed to do. That's not what ladies should be doing either. But there's got to be a bro code here where a guy confides in you. Be a man of honor. Be a man of integrity, and have the respect for the guy that's opening up. And then you can build the courage to share things that you're going through. Noah, when you were here and we were in the truck, we had a great discussion about some things that are going on in your life, husband, as in your marriage, or in raising children. We've talked about all those things, and there's a sense of confidence that we have in each other. A, who else can we relate to, with all the kids? But B, it's like, how do you handle these things? So be a trustworthy man, be a man of integrity, be a man of loyalty, and take on, bear the burden with your brother, if you will. So thank you guys very much. Any final thoughts, Wild Bill, before we close this one out?
No, just to, I had to counsel a couple. This has been several years back here at the church we're at. They were married, had two girls, probably at that time, maybe like 6 and 3, something like that. They were having marital problems. I had them in my office since knowing you had brought it up. And, you could sense, something. And he admitted that night they were sitting on the sofa in the office and I was sitting behind my desk. So I had to end up coming out here and getting Cindy because when he admitted that to his wife, it as a pastor, I don't ever want to see that again. It broke that woman in two.
Yes.
She had no idea. And he had been doing it ever since they had been married. And as Noah has said, it's a cancer. And I mean, you guys, I thought it was going to destroy her right there in my office. So it's something to deal with. And Cindy really had to help her at that moment in time to help her get through. Of course, they ended up leaving the church, but I don't know to this very day, I don't know if he's ever, because he never would say if he's ever really gotten rid of it. Because, that's the situation. You have to let God help you with that. Let God take care. Because, it's like I tell people, God gave the cancer doctors the ability to know what chemotherapy and medicine to give me when I was going through leukemia. But I've told all them doctors and I tell the guys at the golf course, God healed me of the leukemia. God just gave those doctors the knowledge to know what to administer to me. I said, but, there's been no trace of leukemia. The medicine and the chemo didn't do it. God did. God will take care of it if we'll give it to him.
Yep. And I got to tell you, it's one of those things. I listen to this guy, Graham Cook. I love the way the guy speaks. And he talked about, he talked about a situation where I think he was dealing with anger, or there was something he was dealing with that he just couldn't let go of. And this will sound kind of weird, but I don't know if it's in a dream or what, but I think the story was really good. So if you're a man of faith, just kind of open your heart and listen to this. And if you're not a man of faith and maybe you don't have any sense of belief, let me encourage you in this way. He said, like, the Lord appeared to him and he's like, hey, Graham, I want that. And he's like, what do you want, Lord? He's like, I want that. And he was kind of pointing at this proverbial anger that he was harboring in his life.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I can't give you that. No, he's like, no, God. It's like, no, Jesus, I can't give you that. It's terrible. It's not for you. And he's like, no, give it to me. That's what I want. I will bear that burden for you. And he like off burdened himself, and God was able through that dream experience to help him release it. Because what does the Bible tell us? He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And he tells us to bear one another's burdens.
Right.
So he, like Noah talked about earlier, he leads that by example. So what do you have going on in your life that you can't seem to get past? Find someone to share that with that you trust. And then if you are a man of faith or a woman of faith, ask God, and like openly, when I'm going through stuff very difficult, I will just like in an act say, I transfer this burden. And I'll say, Lord, you said your burden is easy, it's light. I accept it. Please take this from me. And so yeah, I thought he tells the story so much more eloquently. Obviously, it was his experience, so he can tell it well. And I'll try to put it in the show notes for y'all to click on. And thank you for sharing that, Wild Bill. Any final thoughts, Brother Noah, Hezekiah, Wylie?
Hezekiah, Hezekiah, just in case anybody was wondering. You might want to put that in the show notes too. I'm sure that's been the biggest question on people's mind this whole time. How do you spell that? Anyway, they're stuck there. They're rooted in Hezekiah. The last 45 minutes is like, what are they talking about? Oh, bro, I don't have anything extra to share. I just really appreciate you Jeannie. I tell you, you listeners, I know Quincy puts so much into the show, and I see his heart when we get together and visit, and he loves the people that listen to this and truly cares about you and your quality of marriage. I see that in him, his passion. He's concerned about that in his life. It's a lot of what drives him is to be a help to other people. And so I just want to end with thank you for just the heart that
Right.
God's given you and the fact and that you do it. It'd be easy to check out. I mean, I don't remember exactly what episode you guys are at. Is it 300? It's 300 and some, right?
Yeah, this will
Now,
probably be 307 or 308.
I mean, any
Awesome.
guy who works and raises a family, that's just inspiring that you believe so much in helping the folks that listen to this that you guys do it every week. So anyway, congratulations to your faithfulness and what
Yes.
God's put on your heart for this season of your life.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for you guys to take time out of your day to come in and to share your heart with our audience, it truly means the world to me. I learn a lot from both of you guys, and have a lot of respect and love and appreciation for what part you play in my life. And I definitely take I don't take it for granted. So thank you very much. Even if I'm terrible at communicating and getting back to text messages, forgive me. Um, you guys are
That
some
wasn't
of
a
the upper.
shot at your Uncle Bill, was it?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Not at all. And honestly, it wasn't. Noah knows as well as
I,
anybody that I'm terrible at getting back to text messages in a timely manner, and I'm endeavoring to be 1% better.
There you go.
there you go.
Um, so guys, thank you for listening to this particular program, A Man versus Marriage. The panel guest, I'm telling you, this to me is something that is going to enhance your life. By now, you've already heard the one with Israel and Jacob, and I look forward to putting more of these out. If you want to be a guest on Man versus Marriage, you just might have that opportunity. Email Quincy at mvsmpodcast.com. And don't forget, as I wrap up here, Wild Bill, if anybody wants to reach out or wants to engage with you, would you prefer them email me, or do you have an email address you want to give away?
They could email you, and then you can give me, because mine's just, they can the
Yep.
church, but they can email you and you can contact me and be fine.
Okay, I'll be the bridge.
But I don't
I'm
have
good
that
with that.
big of a following.
Don't worry, I don't either. I don't either. Noah, how about for you? If people, I know we've done it before, but I don't recall. If people want to get in touch with you, how would you like them to do that?
Sure. Well, I like Bill's idea. Maybe I don't, yeah, have him email you. That was some verbal vomit there. Sorry about that. If they want to reach out to you, I don't know if this is kosher to do this, but if there's guys that are listening and go, I'm secretly struggling with pornography. If you want an unbiased third party to just talk to, I know you don't know me, but I would be willing to be that guy. My wife and I have worked through it in our marriage. We know how hard it can be. I know the shame that's there, especially for a man who is a man of faith. There's a whole nother set of things with that. So I just felt like I wanted, since you asked, I want to offer to be that listening ear. I'm not a licensed therapist or anything like that, but I have been through how hard that is, and I've seen the light on the other side, and how wonderful it can be once that's dealt with. And there's a lot that goes into that, like Bill mentioned with the wife and how hurt they are and that kind of thing. So anyway,
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think I dig that. Thank you very much. And so, depending on how that goes, maybe we put a series together about overcoming pornography, and we bring that to the listener. You and I could work on that together if you like.
dude, we could have multiple episodes on just, there's some amazing things that we could talk about on just backtracking your life, seeing really how it got started, being free from those lies, working through it specifically with your spouse, just having the courage to actually take that leap and bring it up, knowing that I don't know what's going to go down when I finally tell my spouse and we deal with this. So there's a lot that we could talk about and I'd
That's
be
it.
game to do that, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I hadn't even thought about that. But having experts on the show is a big deal to me. And you know, through your experience, you can really help set some people free. And I look forward to that. I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
All right. So if you want to get in touch with Wild Bill, or you want to listen to Wild Bill's Bama Bullet Points, check out the BS podcast. That's right. But if you want to get to my Uncle Bill and talk to him about what you got going on, or just thank him for what he has to say, you know, the email Quincy@MVSMpodcast.com. If you want to get to know a Hezekiah Wylie, do the same. Quincy@MVSMpodcast.com. And look, don't forget, if this show is making a difference in your life, please rate it, please review it, and then please share it with at least 10 guys that you know that that might be able to help them. And maybe they know 10 guys and we can broaden the platform. And
Well,
once you do that, yes, sir.
Like if Noah, say he wanted to one Thursday night listen to Bible study, or some of the listeners, how would they contact you to be able
Yes,
to
sir.
do?
Yes, sir. If you want to get involved in the every other Thursday Bible study, email Quincy@MVSMpodcast.com. And then once what I can do is collect your email addresses, and then we'll give it to my cousin Amber, who sets up the Zoom, and we'll welcome you in the Bible study. Sound good?
We have it this coming Thursday night.
Yes, sir. It's coming. And I'll put the link to the book in the show that we're doing. It's the book of Jude. It's a pretty cool deal. So I'll put that in there as well. And then, like I say, if you the listener, if you want to get with me, or you want to reach out to Bill, or you want to reach out to Noah, just Quincy@MVSMpodcast.com. And then remember, we got swag, and I'm asking you to go out, get the swag, and start marching around in public with it, and help us broaden the platform and continue to make a positive impact on the lives of men around the world. That's QuincyMoran.com/apparel. All the brands that we're working on to influence culture, marriage, and make a positive impact are right there. All right. For Wild Bill, Brother Bill Smith, for Noah Hezekiah Wylie, I'm Quincy Moran, and this is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.